In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to include images in Autocrat so that the certificate you make can have an interchangeable image on it depending on what's in there. In order to accomplish this, we're going to be using VLOOKUP, which is a fun spreadsheet formula that I still am not very good at, but we'll get there. Before you get started, if you're going to be following along with me, it might be a good idea to check out resizing images and how to host images online, because those are two things that you're going to need to do to make sure everything looks good in your final thing. So for my example in this one, I'm doing a unit wrap-up Google form. I have the names in the drop-down list, and the reason I have them in a drop-down list is because based on their name, I'm going to put an image with it on there. So when I had my students, I always had them in small groups that were pretty stable, and they'd choose a mascot for their group. So I want their mascot image to appear on their certificate for this. In order to do that, they need to have their names entered in exactly the way I have them in my spreadsheet. So I don't want them typing in their names on their own. So if you're setting up something where people might enter in different values, you probably want to give it as a drop down instead of one where they can type in it. So just to go through this example a little bit, I'm requiring them to put in their name and the unit that they're doing, because those are two things that are in there. I've made the rest of these questions optional because they're not going to show up on the certificate. They're just going to be for me and my data collection, but you could definitely make them so that they're required. And they're just some kind of closure questions, some self-reflection on what worked for them in the unit and what didn't. And so in return for them answering these questions for me, I'm going to send them a certificate that says that they completed the unit. So the template form is just really simple. It looks like this. I've got my tags set up so the name, the unit, and the date are in there. The one that we're going to be looking at most closely is this one that says image. I've got that kind of seal behind it, and then inside of the seal, hopefully by the end of this little tutorial, it'll populate with their particular group's icon. Okay, so I put in a few dummy responses. I get to the spreadsheet just by clicking this. And so this is the spreadsheet that's open. I'm going to go ahead and right next to their name, insert a column that has their group icon in it. So I'm going to just right click, or I'm on a Mac, so I'm holding down Control and hitting click. And I want to say insert one right. And I'm going to title this image link for now. I'm going to change that in just a minute though. Now, the little bit of legwork I need to do ahead of time, I've created a second spreadsheet or a second page on this spreadsheet. So form responses 1 is the thing that was automatically generated as soon as responses started coming in. And then I made one called groups. And so I've got the names of all of my students, which in this case are cats that I'm fostering, or my own cat. I have just their group name, and that's mostly for me, just to remember what this image is. And then I have the links. The trick to using Autocrat to put images into something is that you have to have that image be publicly hosted on the web somewhere. So if you don't have access to a website or some sort of bin that you have, you're going to want to go ahead and watch the tutorial on Google Sites and how I have it set it up there if you're not comfortable doing that on your own. And then you'll pull the links from there. It will not work if you just have an image in your Google Drive. It has to actually be hosted somewhere on the web. You can use URLs from websites that you don't necessarily have control over, but then remember that those images could go away or be renamed, and that they might not be there when your form is going and calling on them. Okay, so I've got their names here. I've got an image associated with each name. Now, I don't know what order my students are going to be filling out this sheet in. So what I'm going to need to do is if I want the image here, if I want the image here next to their thing, I'm going to have to use something called VLOOKUP. And VLOOKUP is a spreadsheet equation that basically says, okay, look at this name match it to this name here, and pull the image that's associated with it, pull the thing from this cell. So I'm basically going to say, okay, compare the name on this column to the name on this column, and based on those names, take the data from in this column here and put it into this column. I never remember how to do this. I always copy it from other things. So here's my working example. This is the Dig In with Tech post webinar survey responses. I've got everyone's names and emails blacked out, hopefully. You'll see here I have which training did you attend. On this other page over here, I have the list of all the trainings. I have how long they were, the presenter, the title, and then my images are the black and white signatures that we use. So if you've ever gotten a certificate from us, that we're using Autocrat, and we have some publicly hosted signature files that you're hopefully not going to be able to see the full thing of, that will allow you to, or will allow us to put the correct signature based on who's giving the presentation onto our certificate. So that's a more, I guess, grown-up version of the putting the little monster icons on the certificates. Okay, so again, the key here is that these training names exactly match the training names here, which are from the drop-down menu on that particular certificate setup. So if you go over here, time is one of the things that we pull in, and it's got this long formula here, okay? This first part that just has time in quotes is just titling that particular column. So array formula D2, remember D is where we have our training here. If error is just not making an error occur if there's nothing in there. And then VLOOKUP is saying, okay, compare this column, D2, to the column A2 in trainings. And we're going A2 to D because our time is in the D column, okay? And then it's saying go over 4 and do that. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to copy and paste this like I always do and make it work for my existing thing. I'll try to put a copy of my text into the little description box on YouTube, but sometimes it doesn't like it when you put formulas in there, so I'm not sure it'll come all the way through. If not, I'll share a link to the finished file and you can copy it from there. Okay. So instead of image link, I'm going to have this in here. I don't want my column called time. And let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Let's go crazy. Didn't make that bigger at all. Not helpful. Okay, it's a little bit bigger there. Okay, so this is going to be called image link. And so now you'll notice that it says image link here. Array formula, if D2D. That's not what I want on this particular spreadsheet. I want to match it to the names, and the names are in column B. So I'm going to go B2 colon B. B2 colon B means I'm going to start at cell B2, right? I don't want to start at B1 because that's just my title. I'm going to start at B2 and I'm going to go all the way through B. All right. If error VLOOKUP, and again, this part I want it to be B2B because I'm just looking at this column and it nicely highlights it for me. One of the great things about Google Sheets is that it tells you what each parts of the VLOOKUP are. I don't often, I'm often not able to entirely do it this way. I usually have to do some Googling as well. So search key is basically what we're going to be using to match to, okay? And then range is where we're going to be searching for that thing. So here it says trainings bang or trainings exclamation point A2 colon D. My tab is called groups. So I'm going to replace where it says trainings here with groups, and then it should change color. Yes, so now it's recognizing that it's on that different sheet within this Google Sheet. Okay, and then I want it to be looking from A to C, because the name is where I want to be looking things up and C is where I want to go. So again, I'm going to start with A2 because I don't want to include that header. And then this 4 is telling me how many columns over I look from the initial column, I think. We'll try it and see if that works. And so I'm going to go over either 2 or 3. I don't remember what's going to work. Let's find out together. Let's try 2. 2 is just telling me the name, so it's counting this first column. So 1, 2. That wasn't what I wanted. I wanted the link. So I'm going to go here and say 3. And then there's a 0 after there. I'm not really sure what the 0 is about. Okay. No data is just what it will return if it tried to look something up and you didn't have a link in or a name was spelled wrong or something like that. The reason we have if error here is just so that it doesn't put in that like nasty looking like, oh, there's a mistake for any cells that are open that don't have anything defined in B2. Okay, so that's VLOOKUP, and that's how I do VLOOKUP. It's not the best way. I don't clearly have a great understanding of how it works, but I can cobble it together, and so can you. So to show you what this looks like now, let's do another example on here. So I'm going to share my form. I'm going to choose a name, and let's do the human body. And I'm not going to answer any of those questions, and I'll submit. So now, as soon as that's filled in, you can see that a link has also populated. So this is the correct time. This was the human body unit. That's in there. Okay, that's the hard part. If you're with me so far, you're doing great, and we're gonna get there. If you're not with me, that's okay too. Watch it again or send me an email or something, and I will talk you through it. Okay, so now I'm gonna launch Autocrat. I already have it most of the way set up. And because this is something where I want to look at kids' answers ahead of time, I'm not going to have this run on a trigger. I'm going to have this run manually, and I'm going to enable step 7, which I'll show in another video, not in this one, that will allow me to say, okay, yes, I want a certificate run for this kid. No, I don't want a certificate run for this kid. So I'm going to edit this. Next. You'll want to make sure, because you now have 2 different tabs here, form responses 1 and groups, that you're actually running off of form responses 1. That's the point of doing VLOOKUP, is so that everything is on the same sheet, because Autocrat will only run things that are on the same sheet. I can't say go to the other tab and look at that one and look at this one. I have to have everything on the same tab, and so that's part of the reason why we're doing VLOOKUP. So name is still matched to name, unit is still matched to what unit did you finish, the date is going to be the timestamp, and then for image, I'm going to choose image link. I'm going to change this from standard to image, and then it says here, make sure to use a correct image address, must be publicly hosted, click here for instructions. So if you're trying something and it's not working, there are more instructions for you there. Autocrat scales and centers the image to fit within the bounds of the shape or text box and maintains the image's aspect ratio for the Google Slides template. Okay, I wish I'd read that earlier because I did a whole thing about resizing that you probably don't need. So you'll notice that my image box here is probably not going to be great for this. So let's see what it looks like though. I think it's going to just replace that seal, and maybe I'm okay with that. Okay. I think everything else is good, so I'm going to go ahead and hit save. It's going to take a hot second. It'll be okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and run just so we can see what these things look like and if it worked well. I'm nervous to see whether it worked or not. I may be re-recording this whole thing. Let's find out. There are a lot of fun ways that you can use this. One thing I was thinking about doing was just putting in a randomly generated meme. So if I have 6 or 7 memes that are just listed in a separate tab, just like I have the group images listed, I can use a random number generator to pull in a random one. And so then kids have that like, oh, I want to collect all of them. So as I'm submitting these things, I'll maybe try to get them all. So like always, it has it over here. We've got the links to the merged documents over here. Let's see what it looks like. I've got the timestamp down there, which is great. I've got the name. I am not seeing the image yet. which is upsetting me. Will it show up? The cells part is here. No image. Okay. So what I'm going to go with on this is that hosting it on Google Sites is not good enough, which I think I found out before. So you can't use Google Sites. So both of the things that I set up before don't work. And I'm going to come up with a third plan and come back in and show you what I'm talking about, where it's actually going to work next time. Okay, I went back and fixed my mistakes. I used ImageBB to host my image files, and that seems like it works. Google Sites does not. Lesson learned. I went ahead and replaced all of the links here, and you can see they auto-populated in and replaced in here as well. They do not fix themselves in the certificates that were generated, though. So these other ones I would have to redo, and that's not an easy process as you might think it is. I'll talk about how to fix that maybe in a later video. I did go ahead and put in a couple new ones, and it will work for the new ones. So I'm going to go to launching Autocrat again. And remember, I'm running this one on a manual trigger, so I just need to hit the play button. All of my stuff is set up, but I do want to show you what it looks like when the actual image file is fixed. It'll just take a second, hopefully. 2 rows. The way that I would recommend fixing it if you want to redo your jobs is to actually delete the spreadsheet, not the form, and then regenerate a new one, or completely delete the job. Those are the only ways that I know of to fix that. Okay, so let's see if it worked. So here we see the little image in here on the certificate. It doesn't look great. You can see it did replace the kind of spiky thing that I had in there. If I still have my template up, I'll show you what I mean. So I had this in here. The way to fix that is I had been typing inside of this image. So when you make a shape in Google Drive, you can just click in it and type. And if that's the case for your image, it will replace that thing. If I want both the image and the text, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my image in the background and put a text box over it that just says whatever my new tag is. The thing to know with images is that the size of the box that you make here that has the tag in it is the size that your image will be constrained to. So you'll notice on here that this is a little bit big. It's starting to look a little bit pixelated. That's because I started with a small image and I'm making it bigger because of the size of the box that I had drawn to tag it to. So that will be something you want to keep in mind. It looks a little bit better on this one, hopefully. Oh no, those are the same. Sorry, I picked 2 kids in the same group. So this one up here is different though. I'm really having a hard time clicking today, I apologize. So you'll see, here's the bear. They have a different kind of aspect ratio to them. So you'll see that they don't stretch or distort the image, but if the width maximum is hit before the height maximum is hit, it'll be constrained by the width. If the height maximum is hit before the width, it'll be constrained by the height. So you can see here they have a slightly different shape. Something to keep in mind when you're selecting your images. Also, you'll notice that I'm using ones that have a white background, and so if you're including a background, you may want to consider about how you want your certificate to look. I definitely recommend doing a couple sort of demos ahead of time. Like as I'm reading the copy on this, certificates congratulate Fern on the successful completion of human body. I would probably add text in to say the human body unit, and I can fix that on my template really easily by just going in here and adding that text. Okay, so then cells, human body, it makes more sense and it flows a little bit better. but that is how you embed images. It is not the easiest thing in the world, but one of the great things about Autocrat is once you have it set up, it just runs and it works like a charm most of the time. So hopefully it isn't too intimidating. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you want me to help you out with troubleshooting or to work through something that you're getting stuck on. Good luck.